Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review Morning Briefing. It is Wednesday, the 21st of August, and we're here to talk all things Rangers. I'm Derek Clark, as always, and I'm joined by Joshua Barry. How's it going, Joshua?
Yeah, good. Don't sound too enthusiastic. I get another day without new Rangers players to discuss. Some news, Derek, as we get to 11 days now, 10 days before the close of the window. So not long at all. But looking forward to being here as ever, and thanks to everyone for joining us.
Yeah, no new Rangers players at the moment, but they certainly have been linked, certainly to a couple yesterday, which we'll get stuck into. Before we do that, there's a report yesterday of a potential departure, which was quite interesting, Joshua. Cyriel Dessers is someone that we discussed on the show yesterday about Rangers and the need to keep Cyriel Dessers at this moment in time. News emerging from Italy that he rejected a move to join Atlanta United over in the MLS. Apparently, according to Luca Bendoni, who works for Gianluca Di Marcio, the transfer guru over in Italy, he claims that Atlanta United were very keen on Cyriel Dessers and were close to a move and a deal worth £4.6 million, $6 million. But Dessers didn't fancy it, and the deal has collapsed. Incidentally, Carlos Bocanegra, vice president at Atlanta United, so there is a Rangers connection there. Your thoughts on this, Joshua? I think... Listen, Cyriel Dessers has spoke before about his want that he wants to stay at Rangers. He enjoys it at the club, and it would be. I think it would have been a good amount of money for Rangers to recoup. But if the player doesn't fancy it, then that's that.
Yeah, the fee obviously that was posted on social media last night wasn't in pounds, but if you convert it down, it's roughly around the 4.5 million mark. Said kind of across summer. I think we spoke about it yesterday, Derek, that there has been interest from across Europe. There's been interest in Saudi Arabia, and now it emerges interest from elsewhere in the world as well. So it appears that there is nowhere that Cyriel Dessers is not wanted. I think the optics surrounding this move may be slightly different now compared to a few weeks ago, because Dessers is one of Rangers' only informed players and one of the only players who started the season well. But again, it just shows if this report is true, and we know, as mentioned, as we've said throughout the summer, there has been a lot of interest in Cyriel Dessers. Player power is important here. Dessers wants to stay. He's retained that. I think he said that publicly as well this summer. If Rangers could get that type of money back for a 29-year-old striker, would it make sense? Absolutely, but a big part of this summer's transfer story, arguably the biggest part, has been the fact that not many people have kind of followed I don't know what you want to call it, but the example that Connor Goldson set, or what happened in the Connor Goldson situation where he lost his place towards the end of last season. It became pretty clear that he wasn't going to have the type of role under Clement that he'd had under previous managers. He knew, therefore, that maybe it was time for him to go, even though he was locked in on a very lucrative contract for the next 2 years at Rangers. That's not really happened elsewhere across the squad. So it's probably another reminder of the difficulties that Clement and Koppen have to work with. I don't think it's as clean cut now, the Cyriel Dessers deal, as you said yesterday, Derek. If Rangers could get that money in for him, does it make sense to sell a 29-year-old striker for that type of price when you're recouping the fee that you paid for him? Absolutely, but then who plays up front at the weekend? And more importantly, who plays up front next weekend when Rangers travel across the city for the first Old Firm game of the season? So I don't know what you think about it. I certainly, I think you have to look at the actual numbers of this, and when a striker is that old, when you're going to get that money back, regardless of his place in the squad, it makes sense. But as you kind of alluded to yesterday, Dessers is probably a more important player to Rangers now than he was even this time last month.
Yeah, I like him, and I know many other supporters like him as well, but it's whether he's reliable enough for Rangers this season. I still think they need another striker in there to help him out. I don't have too many qualms about him knocking it back. He loves being at the club. He wants to be there, unlike a certain other player who is asked to leave. I thought it was interesting yesterday. I think he would tear up in the MLS, as the comment said there as well. I think he would score a barrel load over there. But he doesn't fancy it, so he's still a Rangers player for now, at least. I think it would take something special for him to leave Rangers. We know there was a host of clubs that have been credited with an interest in him. PAOK in Greece earlier on in the window, and there's clubs in Italy, of course, after his spell over there, that would be keen to have him as well. But at this moment in time, he is still a Rangers player, and he will be leading the line, I'm sure, at the weekend and here on in until Danilo at least proves that he's worthy of a starting place going forward. Now, he started last weekend, but it's clear that he's some way off being at the level required to start games consistently for Rangers. One player who was starting consistently for Rangers until he had his his injuries last season, Joshua, is Abdallah Sima, someone I think many would hope would be joining Rangers, whether on another loan or a permanent basis. News emerging from France suggesting that Stade Brest are closing in on a move for him. It looks like it could be a loan deal for Abdallah Sima. Now, I've seen a lot of folk on social media saying, why are Rangers not going in if it's going to be a loan deal and trying to bring him back up the road? Brest, for me, I could totally understand why he would go there. It's a far better league than Scottish football in France, and B, Stade Brest will be playing Champions League football this season. So there are two factors that I would understand why Abdallah would choose to play in France rather than come back up to Scotland. But that looks like maybe a ship has sailed with regards to that. I think it all determined on Rangers making it into the Champions League with regards to that one. They haven't, and it looks like they could be missing out on Abdallah.
Yeah, I don't think it's exclusively down to the player, because if you look at the noises he made last season, if you look at the noises even that his agent made publicly, and if you look at his overall season, how much he enjoyed being at Rangers, I think he would have loved to come back. But as you say, that's not the only deciding factor here. He had another year triggered on his contract at some point when he'd initially signed for Brighton. I think it was the option of an extra year was in that contract, so his contract doesn't expire now next summer. From Brighton's point of view, you're now putting him to a top 5 league. From Brighton's point of view, you're putting him to the French league, where, yes, he didn't have a fantastic time last season, but he's playing for a club who weren't as good as the club that he's going to, certainly on the basis of last season. I know they didn't start this season very well, but that's an important factor as well. I'm not entirely sure on the wage share, but that will come into it. And the Sima situation, I think we reported it right back at the start of summer, maybe even before the Euros. It was always likely to be a decision that was held, perhaps not only until after Brighton got a new manager in, but until the end of the window, where Brighton at the start of the window wanted to test the market and see what they could get for Sima. The difficulty within selling him is that he has had these injury issues. He missed a lot of last season through injury, and that's something that shouldn't be overlooked, Derek, because not only did he miss half of the season injury at Ibrox, but he also missed a large part of the season through injury at Stoke. He was injured for a point, I believe, in France as well. So there is an injury issue there that will, I'm sure, have played a part in Brighton's negotiating to try and sell him, because it doesn't look like he's part of their long-term plans, and certainly not their short-term plans as well. And the timing of it, yeah, absolutely. We know that Rangers need funds, and they need funds freed up to go and buy players. They need funds freed up to take down their wage bill when they're going to sign players as well, in this bid to think long-term. And Sima was always going to be one that, if it was going to happen, it was going to be at the end of the window. Even in terms of getting him on loan, though, he's a much brighter prospect, despite the injuries that I've just mentioned, because he has scored those goals. And for him, if you're going to play Champions League football, but more importantly, I think as well, Derek, for Brighton, if you're going to go and play Champions League football, play for one of the dominant teams in Ligue 1, there'll be a business element to this decision, a large business element to this decision as well, which is how can we get the most value for our player when he is entering the final year of his contract next season. So if and when that is confirmed, I suspect that'll be a sore point for people who wanted to see Abdallah Sima back. And there is a reality to this window that is kind of underpinned the last few weeks, ever since Clement spoke in pre-season about the need to sell before buying, which is that Rangers have made a lot of decisions in the past, which I think are catching up with them now, whether it be the decision to hand out certain contracts, the fluctuating of recruitment, and that has led to this transfer window being pretty frustrating. But Sima wasn't, as I understand it, the one at the start of the window who Rangers were going to spend the majority of their budget on to try and get him up to Scotland nice and early, purely because there's so many different priority areas. I think if Rangers had been able to get him towards the end of the window, then of course that they'd have been keen to make that happen. But as you say, it now looks like he will be going to League One and playing in a team that is playing Champions League football, which is obviously a big incentive for player and club. But I don't know what you make of it, because he scored a lot of goals. I think he became a bit of a fan favourite, but it's never looked that likely based on the noises of the summer. He was going to come back. I always felt personally if he was going to come back, it would be one that would be done right towards the end of the window, depending on the interest that had been there in him earlier in the summer.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen him back at Ibrox. I've got to admit, I liked him. Although, a comment saying he's injury prone, but I think what I've seen from him certainly added an element up front that Rangers are missing at this moment in time. So, I'd have certainly taken people commenting as what is it, an obligation or an option to buy. Negotiations, apparently, according to reports, Brest working on a €6 million option to buy at the end of that loan spell. So, certainly looks like he will be heading over to France. He's played there before, of course, a loan spell. I think Angers spent time there, an unsuccessful loan over there. So he'll be hoping for a better time if he does make that move. And it will be interesting to see him in the Champions League, of course, as well. Brest qualifying for the revamped Champions League. Another player that could be heading at the reports I've seen over in Romania, Joshua. Big news yesterday over at Rapid Bucharest. A bit of a real soap opera there at this moment in time. They sacked Neil Lennon yesterday after just 6 games in charge, and they replaced him immediately with another manager. And their chief, Rapid chief Dan Suku, has been discussing the possibility of signing Yanis Hagi. He told ProSport over in Romania that he's a real bomb on the transfer market, and reports over there suggest that Rapid may be looking at making an offer for him. Now, from accounts over there, Rapid, big rivals, of course, of Steaua Bucharest, who is his father's club, and there's a feeling why would Yanis go and join that rival club. But they have been... their chief has been speaking about it. We discussed Yanis Hagi yesterday, Joshua. It's important Rangers try and get him out the door before the window shuts, or they're left with a player that they have on their books that they want to get rid of. Of course, he's got that wage clause as well. It will be interesting to see what happens if he's still at Ibrox when the window shuts. But rumours of a move back to his homeland.
Yeah, Chris has got a point here. I've noticed, Derek, that says, if you could make one more sign, in what position are you covering? And we've got a piece on the website today which effectively says it needs to be the number 10 position or the midfield position. I think a lot of the frustration people will have, and this is in response to not only the news coming out of France about Sima, but elsewhere, is that at this moment in time, is Rangers' squad stronger than the one that ended last season? Now, I think you could say that maybe Proper is going to be a better fit defensively, and Cherney will give you a good option on the right. But over the course, I don't think yet you can definitively say, yes, Rangers are in a much better position. And that is understandably really frustrating because of the noises that have been made as per last season about a rebuild. So much of that comes into whether you can get players off the wage bill. Because at the moment, you don't only you have Tom Lawrence as the only real option at number 10, and Diomande can play there, but there's a knock-on effect down the pitch, which is that there's not much depth in the base of midfield. Derek is there. Dujon Sterling, he's needed in midfield for the Old Firm games, but Tavernier's really struggled at right back in recent Old Firm games as well. But as well as Tom Lawrence being the only option, number 10, and I don't think he's always perfectly suited to what Clement wants to do, his style of football, when there's a lot of running in that position. You've got Hagi and Lowry in the B team, and you've got Cantwell training on his own. That is not a situation you can enter the new season with, is it? Whatsoever. You cannot afford to have no depth in one position when you've got 3 players in the building, but not in the first team squads. The Hagi situation is maybe slightly different to the Cantwell one, because Cantwell is asked to leave. Hagi, those talks that took place between the club and his party at the start of the summer did conclude that he was going to look for a move. There's been a little bit of a change there, but as you mentioned, that clause is a really dictating factor, and people can say maybe that okay, get him in because he'll be better than Lawrence, or he'll give you depth in that position. But if Rangers were to do that and they weren't to be able to sell Hagi, they would have another situation, I would argue, where you've got a high earner who maybe isn't going to be a first choice player in that position, or certainly not the exact player that Clement wants to build around. And you can't do that, because then you just push that problem down the line until next summer. But this is why I'm talking about decisions made previously that impact the here and now. I don't know what you think to Chris's point though, Derek, about what position you would cover if you could cover one, but the mid, whether it be a deep blind midfielder so Diomande can play higher, or a higher midfielder so Diomande can play deeper. That's the area for me.
Yeah, someone asked this in the Q&A show the other day there. I did say number 10 because Clement is insistent on playing with a number 10. I've said it before, I'd scrap it. I don't think Rangers have a good enough player that can carry out that role. But if he is playing a number 10, then go out and get a proper one, please, is my view on that one. I think that would be the priority if I had to choose one position to address more than any other. But yeah, let us know in the comments, folks, what position you would like to see addressed before any other. Now, two players have been linked, which we'll discuss as well. Over again, reports in Italy suggested the same source that said that Rangers were keen on a move for the Salernitana left back Domagoj Bradaric. Now he says that Rangers are keen on the Croatian winger by the name of Josep Brekalo. He plays for Fiorentina. He spent the second half of last season on loan back at Hajduk Split in Croatia. Again, vastly experienced Croatian international, 35 caps for his country. Has found first-team opportunities hard to come by at Fiorentina in the last couple of seasons. Can't say I know too much about him, Joshua, but he is another winger that has been linked, as has, according to reports in Portugal, the player of Benfica, Tiago Gouveia. Hopefully that's how you pronounce it. I've not butchered his name. He's 23 years of age. He's been at Benfica pretty much all his days, and he's a Portuguese under-21 international. Hasn't quite made a breakthrough in the Portuguese national team, but yeah, he's another player again, finding first-team opportunities hard to come by at Benfica, but again, another winger that's been linked.
Yeah, but he scored. He came off the bench, I think, and scored at the weekend. I think Benfica won 3-0, but hadn't been involved that much. If you look at his minutes played, he's not played that many minutes previously for Benfica last season. I think on the latter point, it is a player that Rangers have shown an interest in. As is the case throughout the summer, there's a lot of caveats to their interest. I know caveat is kind of been the word of the summer at point at Rangers, but the fact is that they can't obviously go and sign a player. Always right now, it's about trying to get players lined up. That's what you saw happen with Václav Černý and to a degree Robin Proper as well. A winger is what they need, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Clement play a winger and try and convert him into a number 10 or use one of his wide options as a number 10. For example, Oscar Cortez can play there. Is that going to happen a lot in big games? Maybe not, but you need, I think, a ball carrier in that position. If you look at how Rangers play at the moment, Derek, quite often they get, if they're playing with Cyriel Dessers, they struggle to get up the pitch because he's not a hold-up player. And because they play in a maybe more transitional style than previous managers at points, there's a lot of requirement for a player to carry the ball over a lot of distance. You know, Adam and I spoke about this a lot in relation to Chefty yesterday on our New Tactics podcast. So they need not only wingers, but they need more ball carriers in the attacking third. And that alongside, I still think Rangers need another centre-back. That's dependent on them centre back out the door, but I think stylistically for Clement, he needs another player who can fit what he wants in the centre back position. But aside from that, the central midfield, probably in that number 10 position, and another attacking option who probably gives you a bit of versatility across the front of the pitch, has to be the bare minimum for Rangers between now and the window closing in 11 days time. Yep.
Just on positions, we sort of touched on it yesterday. You did a nice wee plug for your video with Adam Thornton yesterday. Joshua Dam says the left back comes in, then Jefty will be pushed to left wing. Go and check that video out, folks. It's very good if you like your tactical stuff. But Rangers were linked with a left back, of course, with Ridvan being out for several weeks. Just off that as well, Cortez, you just mentioned there, Joshua. Ideally, he is your option at left wing, but pretty much like Sima that we've just been discussing, he's unfortunately been injured for much of his time at Rangers already, so he's not someone that you can hang your hat on and say he's going to play X amount of games at this moment in time.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because he suffered what Clement called a freak injury against Kilmarnock, and then it was a kind of a similar noise about his injury against Hearts, but when a player suffered 2 injuries like that, people just will immediately jump to the conclusion that they're not reliable enough, not robust enough to play a lot of games. Cortez hadn't played a lot of games, obviously, in the 6 months prior to coming to Rangers, purely because he'd been effectively on the bench at Lons and hadn't played much there. I think he can be a really good player. He's been a standout young player in Colombia. That adaptation period, it's maybe an example again, Derek, of the fact that if you sign Cortez and he comes into a squad with a few options on the left, you don't have to rush him in, you don't have to play him every game straight away. But Rangers aren't in that position, are they? And they need players, whoever comes in, whatever position, and this ties into the Hamza Egamane situation as well, which we discussed yesterday. They need them to be able to contribute pretty quickly. The 4 to 6 weeks were about 2 to 3 weeks through that process. So depending, I guess Clement will be asked for an update pretty soon on when Cortez will be back. But that left side suddenly, which looked not quite strong, but certainly had a depth of options when the season started. Now you're pretty limited going into certainly that game at Parkhead. And I think if Chefty had been fit and Ridvan had been fit going to Parkhead and Rangers hadn't signed another winger in that position, you'd have seen Chefty play left wing and Ridvan play left back in that fixture, whereas now it's slightly different. I think Chefty's looks really good going forward. I don't think he's as natural a defender, and there will be a few moments, a few goals he concedes, or a few goals Rangers concede that he's got some sort of responsibility for, because he's still 20 years old. He's still a really young player, but the Cortez injury just heightens the need for options in that area. I know Matondo was linked away last week. He's a player that the Rangers would be open to selling for the right price and getting his wages off the books. But again, it's dependent on a buyer to move out, to then move players in the other direction.
Yep, I would like to hear an update on Hamza Egamane as well from the manager tomorrow, because like many, and there's loads of comments coming in, when are we going to see this boy? He is training, but we're all itching to see him in a Rangers jersey. Incidentally, just on Thiago Gouveia, the report suggests from Bruno Andrade, who's a respected Portuguese journalist over there, says that Benfica are willing to listen to offers of around 78 million euros for the player, and they have held talks with Rangers, Villarreal and Anderlecht over in Belgium. So he's someone that is attracting attention from not just Rangers, but a host of other clubs. So a bit of a fight on their hands if they want to attract him to the club. Other news, I've seen a few rumours doing the rounds yesterday, Joshua, on, talking about the injury situation, and it never rains but it pours. We thought that this season might be a bit different with regards to, we all hoped we'd have a different season, a more positive, upbeat season, and already we've suffered injuries to Ridvan, Raskin and Oscar Cortez, and I've seen rumours yesterday that Dujon Sterling had suffered an injury, a broken wrist, some were saying, but we don't believe that is the case, is it?
No, I think he's fine to play at the weekend. That's what I've been told. So, Sterling obviously has had a few injury issues at the start of the season. He had a little bit of a prolonged one, which meant that he missed the first game of the season against Hearts. But I believe as things stand, obviously Rangers will be training between now and the weekend, won't they? But I believe as things stand, they'll be in contention for the weekend. And he's always been an important player for Rangers. I think over the next few weeks he's going to be extra important, because he whether he plays in the midfield or at right back at the moment, if you're going to Parkhead, if you're Clement, I think your midfield, you want Diomande probably higher up, but then do you want Sterling at right back as well? Sadly, you can't have him in multiple positions across the pitch wherever he plays. For Rangers across the course of the season, he's going to be really important, isn't he? And he's someone that Rangers need to keep fit, because they need his presence in the side consistently. And I don't think probably jumping around position to position necessarily helped them last season. So important he gets a bit of consistency this campaign as well. But that obviously depends on what happens elsewhere, because he is the man Clement turns to when he has got injuries in other areas of the pitch. Yeah,
somebody asked me the other day there about with the Celtic game coming up. And James Tavernier, it's a problem area. There's no doubt about it. That right-hand side, Celtic will look to target Rangers right on the match on Sunday, the September the 1st. Sorry. Do you play Tavernier? Do you play Dujon Sterling sort of double up? I know in the Scottish Cup final, I wanted Sterling at right back and Tav pushed up one, just to sort of nullify the threat that Celtic had down their left. Or what do you do if the game's tomorrow, Joshua? Because it is a concern, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think it is. And listen, Tavernier at points in the past, I think his defending, he's improved as a defender, and I think his defending has been over-criticised at points in the past. And then before people shout at me, would I play Sterling at right back now? I think I probably would. Is it going to happen because he's your captain? No. But you look at the last few games, the last few Old Firm games of last season, and when you're going into an Old Firm game and something like this topic becomes a big deal, I don't think it only gives an opposition side an area to target, but it becomes a thing, doesn't it? And it becomes an area where then every mistake is really focused on and zoned in on. Tavernier played a lot of football last season, and I think it caught up with him come March time. That can't be the situation this year. If you were to take Dujon Sterling out of that midfield position and put him at right back, though, Derek, your midfield at the moment would be Lawrence, Diomande and Raskin. Now, Dessers and Lawrence at the top end of the pitch in an Old Firm game. We've seen that two times, and Rangers haven't won any of those games. I know Cantwell started the cup final, didn't he? But I think the two Old Firm games previously to that, it was Lawrence in that number 10 spot. So are you then just pushing your issues elsewhere and kind of pushing them down the line somewhat? I don't know, but it is an area you can't deny. It's an area that Celtic have got a lot of joy in towards, especially the start of this year. Equally, I'm sure James Tavernier would turn around and look at goals he scored, the fact that he has contributed significantly at the other end and at times in this fixture. But when you go back, I go back to that 3-3 game Rangers drew around April time last year, Derek, when there was Celtic scored that goal inside 20-25 seconds, and that felt like such a significant moment. There's probably a lot of areas of failure in that goal, but that Maeda and Tavernier battle has become one of the leading narratives going into this game going forward. So would I play Dujon Sterling at right back if you had a fully fit squad? You maybe put Raskin in next to Barron and Diomande. Yes, I think I would, because one of the issues that Tavernier suffered from at points is the fact that he's been one of the only players available. That's led to him playing game after game after game in a season that he then looks pretty tired come April, because he's played so much football over the past number of seasons. But again, it depends on the options elsewhere, doesn't it? Because I don't know what you do in midfield, but if Nico Raskin isn't fit by then and we haven't heard an update on him at the moment, then again, that area starts to look light, doesn't it?
Yeah, the manager did say that he wouldn't play 60 odd games this season. Remember when he was speaking to Chris at the pre-season training camp, he said that Goldson and Tavernier have played too much in the last few years. So it will be intriguing to see if he takes him out the firing line for certain games. But there's no doubt about it. He is off the pace at this moment in time. Love this. Ryan says, Derek, for my sanity, please stop talking about playing Tav right wing. It's been the calling card of the clueless Da since 2018. So sorry about that,
Thank you, Ryan.
Just looking for solutions about a problem area that I feel will be exploited on September the 1st. So, I think it's something that Clermont is going to have to address heading over the city for that game. But there's a big game before that, of course, Ross County at Hampden. Let's hope, of course, it's... we're running out of games at Hampden with the Steel arriving at Ibrox. We'll be back there come the end of September. John Bennett's aspirational aim. Hopefully that comes to fruition. But Rangers need to go and do the business on Saturday against Ross County. And as we build up to that game, we'll discuss who is likely to start in that one. Of course, press conference day is Friday as ever, so we'll hear from the manager about who is available for that. But just a heads up, what's to come over on the YouTube channel, folks. Chris and Stevie will be recording their talking point at some point this week. It went down really well a couple of weeks ago, so they'll be recording that. Will be available to Rangers Review Extra members before everyone else. So make sure, keep your eyes peeled for that. Joshua, as I mentioned, recorded Jefty piece with Adam Thornton. Go and check it out. And over on the website, he's got a great piece on the number 10 position. The link is in the description below. Right, that'll do us there. Big thanks to Joshua as ever, and thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in to the show. If there's any transfer news, let's hope we get some transfer news, some breaking news today. But we may not, but if we do, keep your eyes peeled on the social media channels, on the YouTube channel, and on the website to keep up to date with all the latest goings on from Ibrox. Right, if we don't speak to you later, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Bye for now.